The sun was dying behind the edge of the Pacific, spilling a deep crimson glow across the endless water. The waves rolled gently, reflecting the light like veins of blood beneath glass. A small white yacht, Aurora, cut through the surface, its twin engines humming softly, the only sound for miles. It was their last night of freedom. 5 friends, 1 week at sea, a celebration before life pulled them in different directions. Alex Morrison, the owner of the yacht, leaned back in his chair, a glass of champagne in hand. He was 23, tall, athletic, his confidence bordering on arrogance. His father had gifted him Aurora after graduation, another prize for the golden boy who always got what he wanted. Across from him sat Jessica Hall, his girlfriend since sophomore year. Smart, composed, with a calm beauty that always drew attention, even when she said nothing. She was studying marine biology, ironic given where they were headed. Next to her, Mike Harper laughed as he told another one of his exaggerated stories, his loud voice bouncing off the water. He'd been the class clown since high school, never taking anything seriously, but somehow he was the glue that held them together. Claire Brown, quiet and observant, filmed everything from behind her old Sony camera. She had a habit of capturing small details, the flicker of candlelight on glass, the way the ocean shimmered under moonlight, as if she were preserving proof that they had once been happy. And finally, Eddie Rivers, the oldest of them at 25, a former Navy recruit who had seen more of the ocean than the rest of them combined. He didn't drink much, didn't laugh much either. He was the only one who noticed when the wind began to fade. "Feels different tonight," Eddie muttered, glancing toward the horizon. The air was unnaturally still, and the sound of the waves had softened to an eerie hush. Alex grinned, leaning forward. "You're just not used to luxury trips. This isn't one of your Navy rust buckets." Eddie didn't respond. He just watched the sky, where the last streaks of sunlight bled into black. Claire adjusted the focus on her camera, panning slowly across the water. "The colors are insane tonight. It almost doesn't look real." Jessica smiled. "It's the calm before the storm." Her voice carried a hint of unease. They ate dinner on the deck, the sound of music and laughter echoing faintly across the waves. Bottles clinked, someone lit candles. The world seemed infinite and safe. But at 10:42 p.m., the compass began to spin. No one noticed at first, not until Mike leaned over the navigation panel trying to play with the autopilot system. "Hey, Alex, is this thing broken? The compass is losing its mind." Alex joined him, squinting. The needle twitched violently, spinning left, then right, before freezing completely, pointing north, even though they were sailing west. Jessica leaned over his shoulder. "Magnetic interference?" Eddie's jaw tightened. "There's no interference this far out, not unless—" He stopped himself. "Unless what?" Claire asked. He shook his head. "Forget it." The laughter didn't come back after that. The music faded into the background hum of the engine. Around midnight, fog began to rise, thick and heavy, like smoke from the ocean itself. It swallowed the stars in the horizon, leaving them adrift in a gray void. Mike tried to make a joke. "Guess Poseidon forgot to pay the electric bill." No one laughed this time. The air grew cold. The temperature dropped nearly 10 degrees in less than an hour. Jessica wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, shivering. "This isn't normal," she said quietly. Alex tried to reassure her, but his voice carried no confidence. "It's just weather. We'll clear it by morning." Eddie, standing by the railing, was whispering something under his breath, an old Navy prayer Claire didn't recognize. When she pointed her camera toward him, the lens caught something strange. A faint flicker of light far off in the fog. It blinked, once, twice, then vanished. "Did you see that?" she asked. "What?" Alex replied. "The light, out there." Eddie turned. His face was pale. "Don't film that," he said sharply. "Why not?" "Because sometimes," he said slowly, "the sea shows you what you're not supposed to see." They went below deck around 1 in the morning. The fog pressed against the windows like a living thing. Every few minutes, a dull thump echoed beneath the hull, soft, rhythmic, almost like something knocking. Jessica tried to sleep. Mike kept drinking. Claire sat in her cabin reviewing the footage she had taken that day. When she reached the last clip, the one with the light in the fog, her screen glitched. The image warped for less than a second, and she thought she saw a face. It was impossible. She rewound, frame by frame. There, between the mist and the waves, a pale figure watching from the darkness, mouth open in a silent scream. Her camera flickered, then went black. At 2:17 p.m., the yacht's lights cut out. Total darkness. "Alex?" Jessica called. No answer. "Maybe the generator," Mike started, but stopped when he heard it. A low groan outside, deep and hollow, echoing across the hull like metal twisting underwater. Eddie grabbed a flashlight and climbed the stairs to the deck. The others followed, hesitant, whispering. The fog was thicker than before, a wall of white that seemed to breathe. The sea was completely still, no wind, no waves, only silence. Then from the fog, something moved. A dark shadow, long and massive, drifting slowly toward them. "Another ship?" Jessica whispered. Eddie's light caught a glimpse of rusted metal, the side of a vessel half decayed, covered in barnacles, letters barely visible on its hull. "The Meridian," he read out loud. Claire frowned. "That name sounds familiar." Eddie's face drained of color. "It should. That ship sank 10 years ago." And as the fog thinned for a brief moment, they saw it fully. A colossal ghostly cruise liner rising out of the water like a corpse, its windows glowing faintly with light. Then, just as suddenly, it disappeared into the mist. For a long time, no one spoke. Mike finally broke the silence. That wasn't real, right?" But deep down, they all knew it was. The sea had stopped breathing hours ago, and somewhere beyond the fog, something was waiting.
The fog never lifted that morning. When the sun should have risen, there was only a faint gray glow bleeding through the mist, like the world itself had forgotten daylight existed. The yacht Aurora drifted without direction, the autopilot dead, the compass spinning, the GPS blinking, no signal. Alex stood at the helm, staring into the void where the horizon should have been. His knuckles were white on the wheel. Jessica sat nearby, her blanket pulled tight around her shoulders, eyes fixed on nothing. Mike had passed out in the cabin below after drinking himself numb. Claire sat on the deck steps, reviewing the fragments of footage her camera had managed to save. Most of the files were corrupted, distorted by static and strange echoes like whispers buried in the background noise. Eddie hadn't spoken in hours. He stood near the bow, watching the sea. His expression was distant, unreadable. At 6:13 a.m., the radio crackled for the first time since the night before. A faint voice broke through, distant, warped by interference. Tet, Aurora, if anyone... Copy. Heavy storm approaching. Coordinates Then silence. Alex grabbed the mic. "This is Aurora. Repeat, Aurora. We've lost navigation. We need..." Static. Then a shriek of feedback so loud it made everyone flinch. The radio went dead again. Eddie turned slowly. That wasn't a weather alert. That was a distress signal. Claire looked up. "From who?" He met her eyes. "From us." At 7:02 a.m., the wind came. It started as a low hum, a vibration in the hull, then rose into a screaming gale that tore through the fog and ripped the ocean into chaos. The Aurora rocked violently, waves slamming against its sides like fists. Jessica screamed as the deck tilted sharply, dishes shattered, the mast groaned under the pressure. "Engine, get the engine running," Alex shouted, but the controls were dead, the key turned uselessly in the ignition. The storm roared from every direction at once, with no visible clouds, just wind and water, howling out of nowhere. Claire clung to the railing, camera in hand despite the madness. She tried to film, but the lens was smeared with salt and rain. Through the distortion, she caught flashes, faces in the mist, just for a second, pale, wet, and human-shaped, then gone. By 8:17 a.m., one of the engines failed completely. The Aurora spun sideways, exposing its side to the waves. The impact threw Mike out of the cabin and onto the deck, bleeding from his temple. "Hold on!" Eddie roared, grabbing the nearest rope. He moved with precision, years of training taking over, but even he looked terrified. The yacht pitched again, nearly capsizing. Water crashed over the bow, soaking everyone to the bone. Jessica was crying now. "We're going to die out here." "No one's dying," Alex shouted back, but his voice broke halfway through. Then, through the chaos, Claire screamed, "Something's out there!" They turned and froze. Out of the storm, through sheets of rain and lightning, something enormous emerged. A black silhouette against the raging sky, a massive ship, half rotten and covered in rust. Its deck lights flickered like dying stars. "The Meridian," Eddie whispered, barely audible over the storm. "It's real." A sound rolled across the ocean, deep and metallic, like a bell tolling from the depths. As the lightning flashed again, they saw it clearly. The Meridian, drifting against the wind, completely still. Its hull was torn open in places, water gushing from its sides, but it didn't sink. It just floated there, waiting. The Aurora was being pulled toward it, as if by an invisible current. "Cut the engine!" Alex shouted, but the engine was dead. The key turned uselessly in the ignition. Jessica clung to Alex, sobbing, "Make it stop! Please make it stop!" The two ships drew closer, 50 meters, 30, 20. Then, suddenly, everything went silent. The storm vanished. The wind stopped. The sea was glass again. And the Meridian towered beside them, black and colossal, casting a shadow so deep it seemed to swallow the light itself. No one moved for a long time. Then Eddie said, "We need to get off this boat." "Onto that? Are you insane?" "Would you rather stay here? The Aurora is dead. No power, no navigation, no signal." Claire's camera was still recording, her hands shaking. "It's not moving. It's just waiting for us." Eddie grabbed a rope ladder from the storage hatch. "We'll climb over, check for supplies, maybe a working radio. Then we come back." No one argued. Fear had stolen their words. At 10:41 a.m., they crossed. The fog thickened again as they approached the ghost ship. The closer they got, the colder the air became, a bone-deep chill that made their breath visible even under the pale daylight. When Eddie's hand touched the side of the Meridian, the metal felt like ice. The hull was covered in barnacles and seaweed, but beneath that, he could see something carved into the steel, dozens of deep scratches, like fingernails dragged across it. They climbed up slowly, one by one, until their feet hit the deck. The surface was slick, dark, and empty. Water pooled everywhere, reflecting their shadows. The air smelled of rust and decay. Somewhere far inside, a door creaked open. Mike swallowed hard. Guess the welcome committee's inside. Eddie didn't smile. Stay close. They moved together, stepping cautiously toward the nearest corridor. The lights flickered violently, casting long shadows across the walls. At the far end, a small figure stood, no taller than a child, soaked to the bone, face hidden by tangled hair. "Hello?" Jessica whispered. The figure tilted its head, and then it smiled.
The silence after the laughter was worse than the sound itself. No one moved. No one breathed. The figure at the end of the corridor, that soaked, motionless silhouette, had vanished, leaving only a trail of wet footprints leading into the dark. Jessica clung to Alex's arm, her voice shaking. "We have to leave. Now." Eddie's jaw tightened. "We can't. The storm's still out there. If we try to jump now, we'll drown." "Then what do we do?" Claire asked, whispering, like the air itself was listening. Eddie adjusted the flashlight on his belt. "We find the bridge, see if any systems are still alive, maybe a distress signal." The beam of light sliced through the corridor, cutting across broken pipes, hanging cables, and rusted walls that seemed to breathe with each flicker. They walked, slow, careful, each step echoing like a heartbeat. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Every door they passed was marked, scratched from the inside as if someone had tried to claw their way out. Some were slightly open, showing glimpses of old cabins, empty bunks, and moldy uniforms hanging like skin on hooks. Claire's camera stayed on. Through the lens, she saw what the others didn't. Faint movements in the reflection of shattered glass, faces in mirrors that shouldn't be there. She said nothing. Not yet. In the officers' mess hall, they found the first body. It sat at a table, head bowed forward, hands clasped as if in prayer. The flesh was gray, wax-like, preserved by salt and cold. Jessica gasped, "Oh my God." Eddie crouched down, flashlight steady. No decomposition, no smell. "That's impossible," Alex said. "Not on this ship." His expression didn't change. Claire raised her camera and zoomed in, and her screen glitched violently, lines of static flashing across the image. Then for half a second, she saw its eyes open. When she looked up, they were closed again. They moved on. In the infirmary, they found charts, old notes, and medical records, all signed by the same name, Dr. R. Langen. One entry stood out. It was dated June 14th, 2014. Subject 6 stopped responding to auditory stimuli. Heart rate 0 BPM, yet EEG activity continues. The captain insists we contain the phenomenon. But how do you contain death itself? Jessica backed away, clutching her stomach. What were they doing here? Eddie's voice dropped. Experiments, maybe biological, maybe worse. Alex slammed the drawer shut. We're not staying to find out. They reached the main bridge by 1:22 p.m. The door was half open, jammed by rust and warped metal. Eddie forced it open, and a gust of cold, stale air rushed past them. Inside, chaos. Broken glass crunched under their boots. Every screen was shattered. The captain's chair lay on its side, straps torn, as if someone had fought to escape it. On the wall, written in something that looked too dark to be paint,
were 5 words. Do not follow the voices. Jessica read it out loud, and at that exact moment, the radio on the console crackled to life. Help, please, help us. Everyone froze. The voice was faint, childlike. Claire whispered, That's the same voice from before. We're cold. We can't see. Help us. Then another voice, deeper, rougher, a man's voice, whispered behind them, clear and close. You already did. The flashlight flickered. The shadows stretched across the walls, longer than they should have been. Eddie turned, gun drawn, though no one had seen him take it out. Stay together, he said. But Claire wasn't listening. She was staring at her camera screen. The recording showed 6 figures standing in the room, not 5, and the 6th one was standing right behind her. She turned, gasping, but there was nothing, just empty space and the faint smell of the sea. The group retreated into the corridor. Their footsteps echoed too loudly, as if someone was walking just out of sync with them. Mike muttered under his breath, We shouldn't be here. This ship's wrong. It's like it remembers us. Eddie looked sharply at him. What do you mean, remembers? I don't know. I feel like I've been here before. Bullshit, Alex snapped. You've never. Then Claire interrupted. Wait. She pointed at a framed photograph, half buried under debris. It showed the crew of the Meridian, smiling, alive, standing on the deck. She brushed the dust away. Her hand froze. In the back row, behind the captain, was Eddie. Younger, clean-shaven, but unmistakably him. Jessica stepped back. Eddie. He stared at the photo, face pale as bone. That's not possible. Then explain it, Alex demanded. Eddie didn't answer. From somewhere below deck, that same thump, thump, thump came, louder, faster, like a heartbeat. The lights flickered again, and when they came back on, Mike was gone. Jessica screamed his name, but the sound seemed to die before it reached the end of the hall. They ran, searching room after room, shouting into the emptiness. Every door they opened led to the same corridor again and again, like the ship had rearranged itself to trap them. Claire whispered, We're going in circles. Alex kicked the wall in frustration. This place is a maze! Eddie's voice trembled for the first time. No, it's worse. It's alive. Finally, they found a door that wasn't there before. It was made of black steel and graved with the ship's emblem, a serpent devouring its own tail. The symbol pulsed faintly, as if it was breathing. Eddie reached out, but Claire stopped him. Don't touch it. It might be the way out. Or something worse. Before anyone could decide, the door opened by itself. A rush of icy wind spilled out, carrying the faint sound of children singing, soft, off-key, echoing from the dark below. Jessica covered her ears, crying, Make it stop! Please make it stop! But Eddie stepped forward, his face empty of expression. It's calling us. Alex grabbed his arm. Calling us to what? Eddie looked back, and for a moment, his eyes didn't look human. To remember. He stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind him. For several seconds, the others just stood there in shock. Then Claire whispered, He's gone. From the other side of the steel door came a single sound, not a scream, not a voice, just a whisper, echoing through the metal like a ghost in a coffin. I never left.
For a long moment, no one moved. The steel door where Eddie disappeared was silent, too silent. No footsteps, no voice, no air. Only that faint metallic hum that seemed to vibrate inside their bones. Jessica pressed her ear against the cold surface. "He's gone," she whispered. "He's really gone." Alex clenched his fists. "We can't just stand here. We have to find another way down." Claire turned, camera trembling slightly in her hands. "You still think he's alive?" "I have to," Alex said. "I can't lose anyone else." They retraced their steps through the twisting corridors of the Meridian. The ship groaned around them, metal straining under invisible weight. Pipes leaked, dripping rust-stained water that smelled like rot and salt. Mike was gone, Eddie was gone, and now every shadow looked like it was breathing. They finally reached a maintenance hatch near the stern. The sign above it was almost unreadable, corroded by years of salt. "Engine access. Authorized personnel only." Jessica frowned. "You think he went down there? Or something came up from there?" Claire's flashlight flickered as she whispered. Alex pried the hatch open. A wave of cold air hit them, so strong it almost knocked the flashlight out of his hand. The smell, oil, mold, and something sweetly rotten filled the air. A narrow staircase led into pitch blackness. Claire lifted her camera. "Recording," she said softly. "Then let's move," Alex said, stepping down first. The descent felt endless. Each step echoed for seconds before fading. The deeper they went, the heavier the air became, like the ocean itself pressed against the walls, waiting to burst in. Jessica gripped the rail tightly, her breathing shallow. "I can't see the bottom." "Keep moving," Alex said. Halfway down, the lights above them went out, one by one, until there was only the narrow beam of Claire's camera. That's when they heard it. A faint tapping sound. Slow, steady, coming from below. Tap, tap, tap. Jessica froze. "What is that?" Alex whispered. "It's Morse code." Claire frowned. "You understand it?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, it says, 'Don't come down.'" They reached the bottom of the stairs. The engine room was massive, a cathedral of rusted metal, pipes, and darkness. Water pooled across the floor, reflecting the weak glow of their lights. In the center stood a single chair. Eddie's jacket was draped over it. Jessica ran forward. "Eddie!" But when she reached it, the chair was empty. Just his jacket, still dripping wet. And something else. A tape recorder. Claire picked it up and pressed play. Static. Then Eddie's voice. "If you're hearing this, you shouldn't be here. It's not just a ship, it's a memory. It wants us to remember what we did. There's blood in the water, Jess. Ours. All of ours." Jessica's hand shook. What is he talking about? Alex grabbed the recorder. "There's more. When you see the mirror, don't look." Then silence. A soft splash echoed from somewhere in the dark. Claire turned the camera. "Who's there?" The beam of light caught something moving in the water. A hand, pale, smooth, drifting just beneath the surface. Jessica screamed as it brushed against her leg. Alex pulled her back. "It's not real. It's—" The water erupted. A figure rose, bloated, colorless, hair floating like seaweed. The face, Mike's face, eyes wide open, mouth filled with water. Jessica fell backwards, sobbing. Alex swung a wrench through the air, but the figure vanished the moment the light hit it, dissolving into mist. Claire whispered, "It's showing us the dead." Jessica's voice cracked. "Then why us?"
Alex turned slowly. Because we're next. They moved deeper into the engine room, past shattered control panels and corroded steel. The air shimmered, faint whispers echoing through the pipes. At the far end, they found a huge mirror bolted to the wall, far too new to belong here. Its surface rippled slightly, like liquid mercury. Claire's camera flickered again, distorting the reflection. Jessica whispered, "That wasn't here before." Alex approached cautiously. It's what Eddie meant. The mirror pulsed, faintly glowing from within. For a second, they saw their reflections, tired, terrified. Then the image changed. The same room, but filled with corpses. Their corpses. Claire dropped her camera, screaming. The mirror surface bulged outward like something was trying to push through. Jessica backed away. "We have to go, now." Alex grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the stairs. But as they turned, the mirror cracked violently, splitting the reflection into dozens of fragments. From every crack, whispers poured out. "You left us here. We drowned because of you. You promised you'd come back." Claire's flashlight died. In the pitch darkness, only the sound of the ocean remained. Slow, rhythmic, and close. Then, a voice. Soft, familiar. "Jessica." She froze. "Eddie?" You shouldn't have looked. Something cold touched her shoulder. She screamed, and the world turned black.
When Jessica opened her eyes, everything was quiet again. No whispers, no water dripping, no Claire, no Alex. Just the dim, cold air of the ship, the Meridian, humming softly, as if the walls were breathing. Her throat was dry, her hands trembled. The mirror stood before her, unbroken. Her reflection stared back, but it wasn't her. The reflection smiled, and then it whispered, "You stayed too long." Jessica screamed and stumbled backward, hitting the steel railing. Her flashlight flickered, and for the briefest second, she saw herself standing inside the mirror, pounding against the glass. The light went out. She ran, through the dripping corridors, past rusted doors and flooded floors. Every hallway seemed longer than before, looping, shifting. The ship wasn't the same anymore. When she finally found a door marked crew quarters, she forced it open. The room was perfectly clean. No dust, no rust, as if time had rewound itself. Beds were made, lights softly buzzing, a half-eaten meal still on the table. Jessica whispered, "What the hell?" Footsteps echoed in the hallway. She ducked behind a bunk just as a man in a Navy uniform entered. His clothes were spotless, his skin dry. He didn't look dead, he looked alive. "Captain says we'll reach the shore by morning," he said to someone behind him. Another voice replied, calm and familiar. Jessica froze. "Good. Tell the passengers not to worry. The storm won't touch us tonight." She peeked over the bunk. Her heart nearly stopped. It was Eddie, alive, younger. He laughed with the crewmen, completely unaware she was there. Jessica covered her mouth, trembling. "Eddie, what is this?" She followed them out into the hallway, careful not to make a sound. The ship was alive, engines roaring, lights bright. Dozens of passengers in elegant clothes walked past, chatting, laughing, drinking. The Meridian was no longer a ghost ship. It was the night it died, and she was inside its memory. She moved among them, unnoticed. Everyone looked real, too real. She could smell perfume, hear the orchestra playing somewhere above deck. She found a large sign near the stairs. The Meridian, Voyage 217, June 14th, 2013. 10 years ago. Her chest tightened. She climbed toward the main deck, drawn by the sound of waves and music. There, under the stars, she saw him again, Eddie, standing with the captain near the helm. He was smiling, confident. The storm hadn't yet begun. "Sir," said the captain, "we're entering the drift zone. Magnetic interference may affect navigation." Eddie smirked. "I've been through worse." Jessica stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. "Eddie, please don't." But no one could hear her. The air shifted. The sky darkened, clouds crawling across the stars. A low rumbling sound echoed across the sea. People began to murmur, uneasy. The orchestra stopped playing. Then lightning split the sky. The storm had come. Crewmen rushed to secure ropes, shouting orders. Waves smashed against the hull. Jessica screamed as rain burst through the open deck, drenching everything. She saw Eddie running toward the controls, yelling commands, but his voice was drowned by thunder. She fell to her knees, crying, "Please stop it, this already happened." And then she saw herself. Near the lifeboats, wearing the same jacket, holding Alex's hand. They were all there. Jessica, Alex, Mike, Claire, Eddie, celebrating, taking pictures. She stumbled forward, shouting, "Look out! You have to get off the ship!" But her voice vanished in the wind. The waves towered higher now, black walls of water smashing over the deck. The passengers screamed, the lights flickered. Jessica watched as one of the lifeboats snapped free and vanished into the ocean. A massive shadow loomed beneath the ship, something moving under the waves, glowing faintly. She turned toward the helm. Eddie was staring straight into the storm, his face pale. "Captain, something's moving below us." Jessica backed away, trembling. "Oh God, this is where it started." The sea split apart for a moment, revealing something metallic, impossibly large, like another ship submerged beneath them. Then the water closed again, swallowing everything. The ship tilted violently, screams, glass shattering, metal twisting. Jessica was thrown against the rail. She saw her other self fall, hitting her head, slipping into the water. Alex dove after her. Mike tried to pull the lifeboat rope. Claire filmed everything. And Eddie just stood there, frozen, watching the sea turn red. Jessica's voice broke. "You could have saved them. Why didn't you?" Eddie turned, this time looking straight at her, but his eyes were black. He said, "Because it needed them. It needs you too." A wave of darkness surged across the deck, swallowing everything in sight. Jessica screamed, and the world shattered like glass. She was back in the mirror room. Water dripped from her hair. The lights flickered. Her reflection smiled again, whispering, "Now you remember." The mirror cracked, and this time something stepped through.
The storm had passed, but the silence that followed was worse. The sea was calm now, yet something about the ship felt wrong. No wind, no sound, just the low hum of metal drifting in the dark. Ethan led the way down a narrow staircase to the lower deck. The air grew colder with every step. The walls were wet, the smell of rust thick in their throats. Dim emergency lights flickered above them, barely holding on. They reached a long corridor lined with storage rooms. Ava noticed strange scratches on the walls, deep, uneven, as if someone had clawed at the metal. Liam opened one of the doors. Inside were old crates marked Elysian Dream, the ship's name. Most were sealed with thick, rusted chains. "Why would anyone lock up empty boxes?" Ethan muttered, trying to force one open. Then, a sound. Footsteps. slow, deliberate, coming from the far end of the corridor. They froze. The sound drew closer, echoing off the steel walls. Ava whispered, "Who's there?" No answer, only the faint dripping of water. The footsteps stopped right behind a closed door ahead of them. Ethan raised his flashlight, the beam trembling in his hand, and pointed it at the door. It creaked open on its own. Inside there was only an empty room, broken chairs, scattered life vests, and on the far wall, written in something dark and dried, "We never left." The lower decks smelled of rust and salt. The air was thick, heavy. Every breath tasted like iron. David led the group down the narrow hallway, flashlight trembling in his hand. The ship groaned again, as if something deep inside its hull was breathing. "Do you hear that?" whispered Lily. At first, it sounded like static. Then, a voice. It came from the intercom panel on the wall, covered in dust and corrosion. "Cabin 9. Dinner is served." The words repeated, soft and broken, like a message from a dead world. Ava stepped closer, brushing the panel with her fingers. "It's impossible. This ship sank 10 years ago." The lights flickered. Somewhere behind them, a metal door slammed shut. They turned. The corridor was empty, except for the echo of their own breath. Chris pointed to a door at the end of the hall. Cabin 9. The paint was peeling, the handle twisted. They hesitated. "Maybe someone's inside," said Mia. Her voice was shaking. David nodded and reached for the handle. It was ice cold. The door creaked open, and the smell hit them first. Seaweed, decay, and something burnt. Inside, a table was set for 5. Fresh food. Glasses half filled with wine. Candles burned, their flames motionless, as if frozen in time. And at the far end of the table sat 5 figures. Pale, still, each one with an empty hollow where the face should have been. Lily screamed. The candlelight flickered, and the figures turned their heads toward them in perfect unison. Then the intercom whispered again, "Welcome back. Dinner is served."
The corridor ended in a dead end, or at least it looked like one. Ava reached out and touched the wall. It was cold, smoother than metal, almost like glass. When David shined his flashlight on it, the beam didn't bounce. It sank into the surface, swallowed by the dark. "Is that a mirror?" Lily whispered. They stepped closer. Slowly their reflections came into view, but something was wrong. The mirror showed the same room, the same group, except their faces looked older. Their clothes were torn, soaked, and their eyes hollow. Mia gasped, "That's not us." The reflections began to move, out of sync with them. When Lily raised her hand, her reflection didn't follow. It smiled instead. A long, slow, knowing smile. David stepped forward. "What do you want from us?" The reflection of David leaned closer from the other side of the glass. Its mouth opened wide, but instead of words, water poured out, black and thick, streaming down the mirror like veins. Then the surface rippled, and the mirror started to breathe. Behind the glass, they saw flashes, memories or warnings. The storm, the ship sinking, faces screaming under the waves. And then a moment none of them remembered, their bodies floating lifeless in the dark. "No, no, we survived," Ava whispered, shaking her head. "We got out." The mirror disagreed. Their reflections were gone now, replaced by empty chairs around a dinner table, the same one from the dining room. A voice, the same hollow one from the intercom, whispered softly from the walls. "You never left." Then the mirror cracked, a spiderweb, a fracture spreading fast. Each crack opened like a wound, leaking seawater that flooded the floor. The ship groaned, metal bending as if something enormous was moving beneath them. David grabbed Lily's arm. "Run!" They sprinted back into the hall, water chasing at their heels. The lights flickered, sirens wailed, alarms from a ship that should have been dead for years. When they reached the stairwell, a blast of wind knocked them down, and through the flood of cold black water, they heard it again, that same voice, now closer, right behind them.
The water reached their knees by the time they found a door marked Crew Office. It was half open, creaking with the slow rhythm of the waves pressing against the hull. Inside, papers everywhere, floating like dead leaves on black water. David pushed his way through, his flashlight cutting across the room. Old logbooks covered the desk, pages swollen and brown. He picked one up, brushing off the mold. "Look," he said, "there's a list of names." Mia leaned over his shoulder. The page read, "Crew Manifest. Last update 10 years ago." She squinted. The ink had bled, but the last few names were still visible. Captain H. Rowe. Engineer D. Miles. Cook J. Larrington. Then, at the bottom, 5 new entries, freshly written in black ink. Ava Cole, Lily Porter, Chris Allen, Mia Kent. Ava's hand trembled. That can't be real." As if in response, the ship gave a long, deep groan, a sound like a dying breath. The walls began to sweat again, trails of water running down like tears. "We must burn it," Chris said, snatching the page. "We'll end this." But as he held it up, the ink began to spread, growing, twisting, alive. The letters melted into each other, forming new words across the page. "Your home." The ship jolted violently. The lights went out. Only the red emergency bulb remained, flickering like a heartbeat. They heard footsteps above them, heavy, deliberate. Then a faint metallic clang, like chains dragging on the floor. Lily whispered, "There's someone up there." A shadow passed the window. Tall, thin, human, but wrong. The head moved too slowly, the joints bending at impossible angles. David took a deep breath. "We move now, up to the deck. It's our only way out." They waded into the corridor, the water now black and warm. The walls pulsed as though the ship itself was breathing. One by one they climbed the stairs. Halfway up, Chris screamed. His hand slipped from the railing, and when they turned, he was gone. The water below rippled once, then went still. "Chris!" Ava shouted. Her voice echoed endlessly, as if the ship was mocking her. Then, a whisper from behind. "He's with the crew now." The voice came from the logbook still floating in the water, pages turning on their own. David slammed the door shut, breathing hard. "We have to reach the top deck before sunrise." But none of them said what they all felt, that sunrise might never come on this ship. The storm had faded into silence. No waves, no thunder, only the steady creak of the ship breathing in the dark. Ava, Lily, and David climbed the final staircase to the deck. Their flashlights flickered, the batteries almost gone. Every step echoed like a clock counting down. When they reached the top, the ocean was perfectly still.
The stars above were sharp and cold, mirrored in the black glass of the sea. The cruise liner drifted without sound, as if floating through space. No one spoke. Even the air was too heavy for words. David reached the wheelhouse door and pushed it open. Inside, everything was dry, untouched. Instruments from another era lined the walls, and in the captain's chair sat a man in uniform, his back to them, motionless. "Sir," David called out. No response. Ava stepped forward, her shoes squeaking on the wet floor. She placed a trembling hand on the man's shoulder. The skin beneath her fingers was cold as metal. The body collapsed instantly. Nothing inside the uniform but dust and water. A hollow shell. Then the lights on the control panels flickered to life. Every dial spun wildly, every gauge pointed to impossible numbers, and across the main screen, glowing letters began to appear one by one. "Welcome aboard." Ava screamed as the ship's horn bellowed, long, deafening, alive. The sound rippled across the sea, shaking the air. "David, we have to get off!" But when they turned, David wasn't there. Only his flashlight remained, rolling slowly across the floor, its beam shaking before fading out. Ava grabbed Lily's arm. "Run!" They ran back through the corridor, but the walls had changed. The hallways were longer now, endless, each turn leading them deeper below deck. Lily was crying, whispering prayers that vanished into the dark. Then the ship shifted again, a deep groan, metal bending under invisible weight. The floor opened. Lily fell first. Her scream was swallowed instantly by the dark below. Ava reached out, but only caught air. Her knees hit the floor hard. She was alone, completely. The silence returned, only the slow rhythm of dripping water. Ava stood and followed the corridor back to the bridge. The wheelhouse was different now, the windows blacked out, the instruments dead again. She walked toward the captain's wheel, and there in the glass of the control panel she saw her reflection. But it wasn't her. It was Ava Cole, listed in a captain's log from 10 years ago, her eyes empty, her lips moving silently. "You never left." The wheel turned on its own, slow and steady. Outside, the fog thickened until the sea disappeared completely. Ava stepped back. Her reflection smiled. Then the entire ship began to sink silently, gracefully into the black water. As it vanished beneath the surface, one voice whispered through the radio static carried by the wind. "Crew complete."